I'm delighted to welcome to our table of conversation Representative Riley Moore, represents the 2nd Congressional District of the great state of West Virginia. Good to have you here.
Bishop Barron, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. First time we met was, a couple years ago when out of the blue, I get this invitation to the State of the Union address. I was at a conference and someone in your office came up to me and I said, "Oh, well, that sounds interesting." And I learned it's the prerogative of every member of Congress to invite a guest.
Yes.
And I was honored to be invited and enjoyed that trip very much. And then we met on that trip and have stayed in contact since. And you're someone that's involved in a lot of different interesting issues. And I want to talk about as many as we can today, but delighted you're here.
I'm delighted to be here, and it made me very popular amongst the Catholics in Congress having you there, but it was a real honor to have you.
Well, I was very surprised, and I've been involved in this last year with the Religious Liberty Commission. There are a lot of Catholics in government at high levels, but also at middle level, lower level, staffers and administrators, and I've been struck by that. And a lot of them know me because of my social media work, and I've just been telling them, look, bring Catholic social teaching into the halls of power, But I've been struck by that, the number of Catholics who are involved in government right now.
Well, and as you recall, you did that Mass.
Yeah, that's right.
As well, and very well attended.
Yeah, and in the course of the past year, I've had a lot of really good conversations with people there. So that's an interesting moment that we're in. Hey, listen, I want to talk to you about a lot of things, but first of all, Christian persecution. I just finished a little book on this topic. I know you've been very involved in it. In fact, kind of a point person. The president turned to you really to, lead the way in investigating, especially in Nigeria, right? So this problem, here's the first thing. Still, a lot of people don't know about it. Still, it doesn't get the attention that it deserves. Why is that, do you think?
I think it fits, unfortunately, outside of the typical narrative of kind of the victim and oppressor, colonialization kind of thing that the left have certainly gravitated towards. I mean, we had a public hearing on this, on Nigeria specifically, persecution of Christians. We had Bishop Anagbe actually testify remotely, who's in Nigeria. And they just flat out rejected everything that he was saying, and he's literally living in it. I visited with Bishop Anagbe in Nigeria. I saw the conditions that he's living in, the threats on his life, the dire security situation that his flock is under. And so it just does. I don't think it really kind of comports with that narrative, unfortunately. But the reality is it's the most persecuted faith on the planet right now.
By leaps and bounds.
By leaps and bounds. It's not even close. And, this is something that has always bothered me. But I now just happen to be in a position where I can do and say something about it. And it's something that's always weighed heavy on my heart, particularly our brothers and sisters in Christ that are suffering just for the profession of their faith in our Lord and Savior. And I feel called, since I'm in this position, to do and say something about it. And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to ramp that up. Wherever it is, whether it's in Africa or the Middle East or even here at home, as we saw Catholics being spied on in the last administration, which was very unfortunate and very disheartening, particularly from a president who certainly identified himself as Catholic. So, it's kind of weird where it's like, this people who want to go to Latin Mass are kind of like far-right lunatics or something.
Yeah, we're being harassed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think it fits the narrative, unfortunately. But might not fit the narrative, but is absolutely reality.
How did you get involved? So, you're interested in it. And then how did the president get so interested? Did you go to him? Did he come to you? How did that happen?
I actually went to the White House, and flash back to his first term, he had designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, which is a very specific designation in the International Religious Liberty Act, that body of law there, that once designated gives the president about 15 different levers that he can pull in terms of sanctions, visa restrictions, security assistance restrictions, lots of different things that you can do as the president once that designation is put in place. He had that designation on Nigeria in his first term. The Biden administration had actually taken that designation off, led by his then Secretary of State. where they had concluded that the conflict in between the Christians and Muslims, which is really a one-way conflict because only one side is armed, which is the Muslim side, that it was being precipitated mostly by climate change. Disputes over arable land, kind of herder-farmer conflict.
And we hear that a lot.
Yes.
So, I mean, what's the answer to that? What's your answer to that objection?
Well, certainly, look, are specifically the Fulani ethnic Islamic group there in the middle belt of Nigeria, are they herders? Are they grazing cattle across not only Nigeria, but the Sahel in general? Yes, they've been doing that for a very long time. Historically and generationally, the Christian populations had always been farmers. Yes, that is part of it, but that does not explain burning down over 20,000 churches. That doesn't explain killing men, women, and children. It doesn't explain attacking IDP camps that people are living in, internally displaced people. It doesn't explain those things. And then in the context of a state like Benue State, which is over 80% Christian in Nigeria, 100%, almost 100% of the IDPs, of the 6.5 million people living in Benue State, 650,000 are in IDP camps, and they're all Christians.
Yeah.
That the math doesn't math on that.
Yeah, I've lived long enough to know that everything is complex and there's always multiple causes. I get it, I must confess, when I read those explanations that it really isn't religious conflict, it's more about, land and it's about tribal. So, yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. But as I did my own study of these cases, it's exceptionally hard not to say these are religiously motivated attacks and that Christians are being persecuted, in some cases killed outright, kidnapped, et cetera, for their faith.
Yes.
I mean, and to sort of water it down as well, it's that and many other things is a little facile, I think.
Well, and then the many other things lead the narrative.
Yeah.
Right? That's the narrative. Now, they've not addressed or pushed back on what's happening in the northern part of the country where you have ISIS and Boko Haram.
Yeah.
Where ISIS put out an edict here just recently. Here's your choice, Christians. Convert or die, or you're going to pay the tax. That's it. Those are your choices. So that's pretty clear where they stand, which obviously we just had a strike here just recently on the number 2 of ISIS. Not ISIS in Nigeria, number 2, ISIS globally.
Yeah, right.
Right there in the northern part of Nigeria, which is a real hotbed of the traditional Islamic terrorist organizations such as ISIS and Boko Haram. So they're more battling over this middle belt, which unfortunately is where you do see most of the killing.
Yeah.
Why? There's just more Christians there. If there were more Christians up north, I'm sure you'd have more Christians killed up there as well.
And you found a similar thing in the Middle East, didn't you? That kind of,
Yes.
All or nothing, convert or be killed or,
Yes.
take or pay the tax or whatever it was. The same kind of mentality. So when you met with the president prior to your trip over to Nigeria, what was on his mind? What did he?
Yeah, so it communicated to him through channels in the White House, and eventually was able to get his attention, the vice president's attention on this issue as well, and asked him, please redesignate Nigeria country of particular concern. And then on Halloween last year, he did that. And then to my surprise, announces in a Truth Social post, not only is he designating them, but I am telling Riley Moore, Congressman from West Virginia.
Is that how you found out?
Yes. I'm telling Congressman Riley Moore to go investigate this and report back to me with recommendations, which is then what we did.
Interesting. That's how you found out.
Yes, that's how I found out. I knew things were moving in the right direction on the designation. I didn't know I'd be getting on a military aircraft to then go to Nigeria and
so who did you organize as part of your team? So now you're on for this. Who came with you, and how did you make the decision?
So he asked myself and the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, which I'm on, Tom Cole. And so it made sense for Mario Diaz-Balart, who is the chair of what used to be called the State Foreign Operations Subcommittee, now NSRP. He led the delegation as the chair of that subcommittee, and it was a bipartisan congressional delegation that went, and it was all appropriators that went there. We had Juan Ciscomani, Scott Franklin, myself, Norma Torres from California, thinking if I'm forgetting anybody, obviously Mario Diaz-Balart. And so we went. We held meetings in Abuja. And
were you welcomed by the government? Like, were they open to your arrival? Were they cooperative with you?
They were, I think, a little surprised that we showed up.
Yeah.
I think they thought they were going to deal with this kind of at arm's length from afar. And then we said, no, we're coming. And so we did have good meetings with them. I'd say they were productive. Some of the commitments in there I don't think have been lived up to this point. I think it's why the president's getting frustrated. I'm frustrated as well. But good conversations. But then we went, it was pretty interesting. We go to Benue State, which is many hours from Abuja. We go by plane, and we fly down there, and then we're met with a military and security convoy. We had to move in armored vehicles all through Nigeria. And so then we got guys, 50 cals on, MRAPs and stuff like that, and Humvees, taking us to go visit Bishop Anagbe, visit people who are in internally displaced camps. And that's where you really saw the horrors of it. But I'd say the most moving part of it is we go into what I can only call like compound where Bishop Anagbe is. And all of the priests are there. Sisters are there as well. And we get out and I'm just welcomed with hugs. These people are so moved. The United States
American government.
The United States government is here. They've watched it on TV. They've seen some of these things. And now here I am in real life. And the first thing I did when I got there, I prayed with them. We prayed together. Many of them gave me rosaries. The bishop blessed a rosary and gave it to me. He actually has a book as well that he gave to me. And then the thing that just sticks in my mind is meeting those folks in those internally displaced camps. I met a woman.
Yeah, tell me about that a bit. People you met there.
It was just terrible. I met a woman who had her husband and her 2 children murdered right in front of her. And they actually then killed her unborn child, which she survived that. Really barbaric, horrific acts. I met another woman who had all 5 of her children killed. Her whole family's gone. And they live in IDP camps, which are routinely attacked by these jihadists. And so, they're living under the threat of death from Islamic extremist groups every day of their lives. And so I reflected on this a lot, thought about it a lot. I live in America. I don't see this type of rampant violence all the time. People being murdered or hacked up or any of these terrible things, these folks, their faith was so incredibly strong. It was unbelievable. It was really astounding. And the bishop just steady as steady can be on this. And he was a real unifying, organizing force. So when I met with him, he brought in all the Christian denominations. He kind of is the organizing principle on a lot of this. The different type of Protestant sects were there. And everybody's just kind of lockstep. Nobody's looking at this like, well, you're Catholic, so maybe you're like 90% bad, and you're evangelical, you're 80%, but whatever. You believe in Jesus Christ, that's a problem. You're a Christian, that's a problem. So there's not, obviously, so they got to band together to survive this. And, I think about it, we talk about salvation through suffering, and these people are suffering, their faith being so strong. I think about it as us here in the United States, the West generally, perhaps that their suffering might be offering us some salvation if we pay attention to it. And that's why I can't stop working on this. And I would tell you back home in West Virginia, there's not a church that I don't visit, whether it's Southern Baptist, evangelical, Catholic, or otherwise, priests, pastors, whoever it might be, calling me, thanking me.
That's interesting.
This is very close to all of their hearts. This Christian persecution issue really bothers everybody across the spectrum.
It's what led me to write that little book, because it was frustrating me that it wasn't talked about sufficiently, and it just wasn't on people's radars. And It's horrific. The more you look, so we've been focusing on Nigeria, but there are lots of other examples in Asia, in the Middle East,
Yes.
in the West in a more mitigated way, but in the Middle East and in Asia, the same kind of things. I mean, brutal persecution of Christians. And our ecclesiology would teach us that these are our brothers and sisters in the Lord, and we're also members of the same mystical body, right? So we can't say, well, that's your problem over there, and that's, your suffering. And, I've been looking at these issues of religious liberty in our country, which are serious enough, but we're not being murdered for,
Yeah.
And so talk about the grossest possible violation of religious liberty, which is offensive to us as Christians, but also as Americans. It's a deep principle for us as Americans. I'm curious, when you got there, so you met some people, you met the bishops. Were there formal hearings? Did you have formal sessions where people came in to testify, or how did that work?
We had formal meetings with all the different Christian sects that were there, formal meetings with the IDP folks, very formal meeting with the government in Nigeria, in Abuja.
How'd those go?
The meetings with the government, they went well. They heard what we were saying. They understood pretty clearly, and I think people understand even more so now, that President Trump doesn't just say things to say them. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. He says it in his way. Some of the language I'm not going to repeat here, but he's very serious about this. He is very committed to it.
He seems passionate about it.
He is. He is very much so, and you'll see he'll mention it in remarks. It's something that he is proud to have actually stepped up and do something about this. And I think from an elected official position, from a U.S. government side of things, look, we are a Christian nation. I think we have a duty here as a government to do something. In our own personal capacities, people of faith, we have a duty, I think, to do something. But even as a government, these people, there's no one is going to come help them. Nobody. If it's not us, no one's going to help them.
Mm-hmm. I remember years ago when I read Bill Clinton's autobiography, and he said the single greatest regret of his presidency was not intervening in Rwanda during the massacres there. And I remember that time very well. It was a different situation. It wasn't, so much anti-Christian persecution, but there was this terrible violence going on. And Clinton said that was his greatest regret, that he didn't do anything at that point to intervene, And I think about that when this sort of wanton slaughter and persecution of Christians is going on. How is the world responding to it, So you finish the investigation there, talk to the government, talk to people on the ground, talk to bishops. You get there yourself in person, which I think is very important, right?
Yeah.
You weren't just, commenting from a distance. I mean, you were there on the ground. Even a little bit afraid for your own safety while you were there, because I'm sure people were.
I was. I get
it.
I wanted to attend Mass while I was there, but our government, did a security assessment. They're like, you can't go.
Yeah. Okay.
And so luckily, I talked to my priest before I went. I got dispensation.
That's interesting.
Okay. Because I was worried that might be the case.
They'd attack a church while you were there, maybe. So then you come home, and was there a formal report you put together?
Yes, we put together a formal report, presented that to the White House with a bunch of different recommendations, some of which you see are playing out right now.
Yeah, give me what are the top 2 or 3 recommendations you made to the president?
Well, one of them that I'm continuing to push on is that, and I see this very clearly, they have a centralized security force in that country. So their police, it's a national police force. The states, it's a very large country, 250 million
It's a big
people,
country, yeah.
Huge, largest country in Africa. The states have unarmed police. None of them are armed. So if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, people got to come out of Abuja and drive all the way down to wherever, and by then it's over.
Yeah.
If they even respond.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to see is devolved police powers, armed police presence in these states and giving them authority to be able to protect their own folks. 2 is looking at leveling perhaps some sanctions on the Fulani specifically.
Yeah.
And they have a cattle association there, which some of that beef is consumed internally in Nigeria. Some of it's exported to countries that we deal with.
Okay.
3 is trying to find ways that we can engage with Nigeria if they're going to do the right thing, right? This is all kind of based on confidence-building measures on their side and seeing what they're going to do. Engaging with them and increasing perhaps economic cooperation in between our two countries, which I think would be very helpful for them and for us. Because in the back of all this, you have China.
Yeah.
China.
Say more about that.
So China is there. China is currently mining illegally in Nigeria, rare earth minerals and other things. So what they'll do, they'll go in and bribe the local governor, and they will pay a lot of the terrorist groups. So they will pay them to leave them alone and then go do whatever they want. And so China, it's in their interest, their calculation is it is in their interest to have a destabilized Nigeria without the rule of law so they can continue to illegally mine these rare earth minerals that sit in Nigeria. So they want destabilization. We're trying to bring stability to the whole country.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention something because people always say, well, you're only talking about Christians in Nigeria. The country's 50% Muslim, 50% Christian. You don't care about those lives. Of course I care about those lives. All lives are sacred. I care about all lives. Bringing stability to that country for everybody is important because there are Muslims who get killed who won't bow down to ISIS or Boko Haram. Their lives are just as important as anybody else's. But that's the thing, it's all, you only care about I care about every life, all of them.
Yeah. That Chinese connection is very interesting to me. So the kind of imperialistic aspirations of China that are often expressed economically rather than militarily at first, right? And so there, it's the rare earth stuff they're going after.
The same thing in the DRC, right next to Rwanda.
Yeah.
Right? They are running
the Congo.
Mining operations in the Congo there in the DRC. You have essentially slave labor going on there, the wages that they're paying them, children involved in it and everything else, mining lithium and everything. And we're just kind of whatever about it. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's a human rights tragedy that's unfolding over there
in
many regards.
Did you have a chance, so when you got back to really, debrief the president directly and say, look, here's in our report, did he give any indication of, this is doable, this might be more difficult?
Well, we kind of just gave him a menu of options.
Yeah.
And the report is public now. You can find it on my website. But just kind of gave the president, the administration, a menu of options, and some of which we're continuing to work through now, particularly the Middle Belt, as I've mentioned a couple times. That's really complicated. Look, ISIS, Boko Haram, kind of your typical franchise terrorist organizations that we've seen in the world now for a very long time. They got leaders, they got guys that do finance, weapons, this, that. Highly organized structurally, the Fulani are not. Very decentralized. There's not really like an organizing principle other than there are some influential sheikhs that are involved in it, but there's not like, here's the leader. Because it's an ethnic group in one sense, and then guys on two-way radios saying, hey, let's go attack this village.
Yeah. Who are some Democrats who are working with you on this? You mentioned the bipartisan nature of this team. There's some Democrats now in Congress that are helping you with this issue?
I think some of their eyes have started to open on this. I think Norma, who went with us, certainly I think it was eye-opening for her. And through that trip, we were politically very different, the two of us. Really got to know each other both very well, become friends since then and going through that experience.
I've often thought this issue, a bit like human trafficking, is one of those issues that ought to bring everybody together.
Yes.
Everyone should say, this is really terrible that Christians are being, slaughtered in different parts of the world. Just like human trafficking. I would say that when I was in California, we talk about, how to influence the politicians. And I would say, can't we all agree this is a really bad thing that we should be working on?
Right.
So it strikes me that way. So, please God, we can make some real progress and, grateful for what you did there to make that a reality.
We're going to keep working on it.
There are other things I want to talk to you about, but I first want to Ask you a bit about your background. We were chatting. We share a common kind of ethnic heritage, Irish and a little English and Scottish. And
Yep.
You got a Catholic background, but you sort of had a reversion to the faith later in life. Tell me a bit about that. What sort of brought you back to a fuller appreciation of Catholicism?
Yeah, it was. So my grandparents on my mother's side, particularly when my grandmother died young. She was relatively young, so I was young. And she dies. That is beautiful mass, funeral mass for her that everybody kind of still talks about. My mom does as well. That I couldn't participate in. And my grandfather, who was also, he fell into poor health as well, also Catholic. And he lived for quite a bit longer after that, but I was like, I think I'm missing something here. And my mom had grown up going with her grandfather, Walter McGowan, great Irish guy, Sligo, Ireland, good Catholic family. And this is pre-Vatican II, so daily mass goer, always went. My mom grew up going with him, and I don't know, fallen to the wayside on these things. And it's interesting, this generational transmission. Walter McGowan has this influence over us and in our lives and in our hearts, even though he's been gone for so long, that I think strengthened my grandmother's faith, and then by way of transmission, strengthened my faith, and said, no, look, I mean, we've been probably Catholic for, I started thinking about over 1,000 years, right? Why would I not go back to our faith? And so I did. And my mother's Catholic. I'm Catholic. My kids are Catholic. Wife's Catholic. And it feels like everything's kind of put back into place where it was originally supposed to be. But we had tried a couple other things, Baptist church and this and that, and it, and nothing against the Baptists, great people, but I always had this calling in the back of my head, like return.
And you're an intellectual type. I mean, you read Catholic authors, and who are some of your favorites?
Well, for me, I gotta just give him big props here right now. And I know this is a contemporary; he's alive right now. But the work that he's done on the St. Ignatius Study Bible, Scott Hahn, and all his works.
Well, he's from your neck of the woods.
He is from my neck of the woods.
Steubenville's not too far from West Virginia.
Oh no, but where my district is, we're in West Virginia. I can see Steubenville from across the river.
Okay,
yep, it is right there. And there's a lot of my constituents go to Franciscan.
When I visit him, you fly into Pittsburgh, so you're in Pennsylvania. Then you cross over a little bit of West Virginia.
Yes.
And then you get into Ohio, as I remember.
Yep.
Right?
That part of West Virginia is my district.
Got it. Okay. So he's not too far from...
No. I really loved his books. He's very intellectual, very thoughtful, but particularly that study Bible. Obviously, they first had the New Testament, and now they've come out with the totality of it with the Old Testament as well. The liner notes in there are just so helpful, so helpful. I just... went back through, read the New Testament here just recently, now doing the Old Testament again. I try to typically read the Bible every night before I pray. And it's just very helpful. And he's got these great books. I mean, everyone knows Lamb's Supper and all that. Just, I've seen it help other people in their lives as well. So I think that's why I'm so high on him is I've seen a lot of young people like from Southern West Virginia who grew up evangelical, Southern Baptist, who are now Catholics because of some of the things that he's done. And then some of the things that you've done. You're hugely influential over these folks in their conversion to the Catholic faith. I mean, you think about people living in the southern coal fields of West Virginia, and now with obviously platforms like this, anybody can reach them. And I asked one of them, like, why? I'm just curious. Why did you decide to become a Catholic? And in a word, truth.
Yeah.
And they want the depth of it, all the way down to the bottom. I want to get to the very, very nitty gritty of it. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And the thing that I thank God for, that we found this tool. When I was a young guy, you had to go to a library or maybe go to some distant bookstore. I'm from Chicago, a big Catholic area, but you had to drive a long way to get some bookstore.
Yeah.
If you wanted to get a book of, Augustine or Aquinas or something. Now, they're available readily. If you press of a button, or the books are available. Amazon gets to your door the next day. There's kind of a golden moment we're going through in terms of evangelization, and I think it's one reason why a lot of these younger people are making their way back to the faith. So it's a grace that these tools have been given to us with all the negativity of social media, which I'm well aware of.
Yeah,
but it's also a grace. Hey, you talked about praying. How do you pray? What's your prayer life like?
So, first and foremost, it's kind of instructing my own kids in the basics, right?
Yeah. Your kids are how old? They're
4, 6, 8.
They're little people, yeah. Okay.
Yep. And my daughter was just got First Communion, and which was a extremely emotional event for myself and my wife.
Yeah, nice.
It was very beautiful. But so one, right, I want them to learn how to, and luckily they go to Catholic school as well, but, I want them to know Our Father. I want them to know how they got those down.
Right.
They even got St. Michael down. And then we're doing, even though some of those words are a little trickier in that prayer, prayers at meals, things like that. For me and my wife, a lot of times before we'll go to bed, we'll pray the rosary. When I'm traveling, just a lot of times as well, I like to pray it on a plane.
Yeah.
And I travel a lot. But yeah, we'll pray the rosary. There's one thing that I pray every day of my life.
Which is what?
I pray, particularly in the job that I am in my life, and the choices that I'm making, what I'm trying to do, that I can discern God's will in my day and in every day, because it's easy to get away from it and turn it into my will, and it becomes more difficult to discern. And so, trying to stay grounded in that is difficult. So I'll kind of go, search my conscience, think about what I'm doing, and put a lot of this in God's hands. Just please, just whatever your will is in this, use me as an instrument.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll, and then I think I'm like everybody, the Hallow app. And so every morning I start my morning by listening to and praying, actually, with you. Psalm.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes, that is how I start my morning, and then I'll listen to the daily reflection.
I remember recording those Psalms in Santa Barbara. I was still there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they came to my studio there, and we recorded. I read every Psalm, and it was interesting exercise because it was difficult in a way, but it was very prayerful. Over the course of several days, I read every Psalm aloud, and those are the ones you listen to on Hallow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
They are. I know we all know this, but boy, they're beautiful.
Oh, yeah, the Psalms, it's the great songbook of the church, right?
It is.
And all the emotions we feel and all the different, attitudes toward God, our anger, our love, our excitement, our frustration, they're all in there.
Yeah, it's, and praying with my family, just as a family as a whole, that's really special.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful.
Yeah.
And my kids, they had one of their teachers twisted their ankle at school here recently and said, Let's do a Hail Mary and Our Father for, Miss such and such. She twisted her ankle. Just them thinking about that. My oldest daughter, kids have a way of just like, they see it so much clearer. They have a way of moving you. When my daughter got First Communion, it was, as I said, very emotional. Then we do Second Communion, crowning of Mary.
Yeah.
And she gets communion and comes back, and we're on the kneelers, and we're praying together. And she turns to me and she says, "Do you know what I want to? I think I know what I want to be when I grow up." And I said, "What's that?" She said, "I want to be a saint."
Wow, that's the right answer.
Yes,
that's the right answer.
She's like, I want to be a saint.
It's very perceptive, though.
And it's like, we're all called to that. Like, and it's, boy, I don't want to get like emotional about it, but it reminds me of like Matthew 18:3, right? Amen, I say to you, if you do not turn to be like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven, which I think has a lot of meanings to it. Obviously, there's humility in there, there's authority in there, but I think one of them is clarity.
Yeah.
They have this just sense of clarity, like this is so clear to her.
Right.
So clear to her. And she'll look up and we have these mosaics of the saints and she's like, I want to be one of those.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's the right answer.
It's the right answer.
We can be all kinds of things, but ultimately we want to be a friend of the Lord. We want to get to heaven.
We want to get to heaven. Exactly.
That's the ultimate answer. Well, I'm really delighted to hear all that about your spiritual life too. I wanted to, explore that with you, that this is informing your political life so powerfully. Let me shift gears to another issue that you've taken, a strong stance on, which is immigration. And in that very chair have sat Tom Suozzi, your colleague from New York, and Ro Khanna, your colleague from California, both Democrats, of course. And we had, a conversation about a lot of things, and we came around to immigration. With both of them, and I'll say it to you too, as I look at it, and I don't want to speak for all the bishops, I don't know, there are different views, but I think a lot of bishops would agree with something like this. Our country is a generous country. We're the descendants of immigrants who came here, in some cases because of persecution. We got a Statue of Liberty welcoming people from all over the world. It's a beautiful part of America. That's no question about it. Secondly, a country has a right to maintain its border and to enforce its immigration laws. An open border is actually a moral problem, that all kinds of mischief happens over an open border. And so it's the right of a country to monitor that border. A position you've taken, or a stance you've taken, people in this country illegally who've committed violent crimes should be deported.
Yes.
I think most bishops would agree with that. Last observation, the many people in our country who are here undocumented, can't simply be mass deported. That we have to find a more reasonable kind of political solution to that part of the problem. If I were to put those parameters out there, I have a feeling most American bishops would say, yeah, somewhere in there is the right answer. And now it's up to policymakers like yourself to okay, now let's figure out how precisely to do that. So I ask your two colleagues the same question. What am I getting wrong there? What would you correct? Would you accept that basic way of framing the question?
Yeah, I think I could agree with probably most of that. From my perspective, particularly as a guy who's representing West Virginia, our view of it is we're just forgotten. Nobody cares about us. Nobody thinks about us. I have constituents in southern West Virginia that don't have water. They don't have jobs. McDowell County, one of the top 3 poorest counties in the entire country, 30%, over 30% now under the poverty line. And for my constituents, the idea that we need to bring people in to do jobs, that doesn't compute. Yeah. And then also on the other side, foreign aid. Why we need aid. We need help. There's a woman down there in McDowell County. She literally takes a mule down to the bottom of the mountain because she has no water, fills it up at a spring, a natural spring, fills up bottles of water, puts it on the pack mule, and goes back up the mountain.
This is 2026 America.
2026 America, that's happening. So for my constituents, it's a little difficult to understand why we need millions of people coming into this country. From a Catholic sense, certainly, look, the dignity of the individual is absolute. I understand that, and the way that we're going to treat people, totally agree with that. But also in the Catechism does say that we have a duty to regulate our border, to control our border. We're Catholics. We believe in order. Disorder leads to violence, chaos, and all these other things that are detrimental to society. I think part of where the rub happens is, it's certainly a prudential matter of how much is too much, how much is too little. What that number is left to us.
To policymakers, right?
Yeah, to determine.
Right. I think my job as a bishop is to articulate the principles that ought to govern, the parameters that ought to be in place. But then, as people like you and your colleagues who disagree with you, okay, let's get down to basics, into the weeds here and figure this out.
Yeah. And look, we want people that want to come to this country. We want people to come to this country that want to be a part of it, that want to be productive, that want to be American. And I think the problem is you see many times there are folks who are recently immigrated here that outright don't like us, don't like this country. They'll publicly say it. We're the great Satan or whatever it is. We're colonists, we're colonial power, all these other things, which is kind of very strange statement to make since we're a colony and very, very interesting. So I think there is a problem where this has become almost like a 4-letter word with assimilation. And when you have mass migration and masses of people coming in and living in these areas where ultimately they're not able to assimilate into this American way of life, we're not helping them, many of which don't speak English. And the problem with that is that then they have no access to all of the critical components to not only our culture, but our way of life, governance, and systems, whether that's college or banks or this or that. And so they kind of get pigeonholed into these communities where there's a lot of predatory activity in terms of lending and this and that and these other things that go on.
When I was in California, I saw the maintenance really of a permanent underclass because of the immigration situation. And it wasn't humanitarian. It was the contrary, it seems to me, that certain powerful people had an interest in maintaining a permanent underclass. And it was made possible by these dynamics within the immigration system. Yeah, so that can't be a good thing.
It can't
for anybody.
And we have to also recognize, and the president is working on changing this, and I am 100% supportive of this and working with him on this, is changing this economy in the way that we do things here. But we are very much service sector economy. So people come here like it's the 1950s or 60s, like they're going to get some job in a factory or manufacturing. Those jobs aren't here right now. We're trying to bring them back. But many Americans are also stuck in those jobs as well. Many people are going to immigrate here, and their lot in life is probably cleaning a building or something like that. And that's honorable work. I'm not denigrating that. But that ascendancy in terms of economic strata sometimes doesn't, that ladder's not there the way it used to be previously. So I think it's a disservice not only to the Americans, but even thinking that this is a good idea for the folks who are coming here. But as the president is restructuring this economy, reshoring it, going back to my people, the West Virginians, they need those jobs and they want those jobs. And I think there's an order to this, right? And, obviously controversial topic, that was debated with the vice president, kind of the ordo amoris, right? I think that's right, though. I think that's right, that we have a duty to take care of our people here and make sure that they're okay, like the folks with no water and no jobs in southern West Virginia.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because that was about a year ago, that controversy about ordo amoris came out. I think even when Pope Francis was still alive, and it was construed as somehow at the subjective level, if you say ordo amoris, that I've got stronger, feelings here rather than there. And my argument was, it's not about the subjectivity of love, that I will the good of everybody subjectively. Yes, that's true. I will everyone's good equally in ways subjectively. But the objective side of love, I will the good of the other. Well, then look at it in terms of how much time you have, how much energy you have, how many resources you have. So in like the famous example, all the homes in your block are on fire. Do you run down to the home, the fifth home down, to save the kids there, or do you take care of your own kids first?
Right.
Well, yeah, and that's what St. Augustine was arguing, and Thomas Aquinas echoes him, that
Yes.
when it comes to the apportioning of your resources, well, there's a certain order in how we do it. They also said, by the way, both Augustine and Aquinas, there are exceptions to it. So let's say your house is okay, but the house down the street's burning. Well, yeah, you go and help the kids there. Of course you do. So there are exceptions to the ordo amoris, but it's a question not of the subjectivity of love, but of the objective goods that love is able to make available. And to me, that distinction was lost in that discussion often.
I agree with that 100%. That's a very good way to lay all that out. And, obviously you have the rebuttal on the other side. Well, remember the Old Testament and the stranger in Israel.
Of course, yeah.
Of course. But let's say I'm welcoming that stranger into my house and my house is on fire.
Yeah, right.
My house is not in order at all. I'm not necessarily helping them in that sense, because everything's falling apart behind me right now. And it's like, yeah, come on in. We got to be able to ensure that, the guys in Southern West Virginia and some of these other places are getting taken care of in the order of things. And we do have a duty to do that as elected officials in this country.
No, I think fair enough. I mean, you're elected as a congressman to represent your district in the United States government. So you don't wake up in the morning thinking my first priority is how are things going in Thailand or something.
Right.
And that's nothing against Thailand.
No,
it's just
nothing against them.
That's your first responsibility as a congressman. To me, I think that's what Augustine and Aquinas and company are arguing there. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the new encyclical. So as we record these words, just a few days ago, Pope Leo came out with the new encyclical, Magnificat Humanitas, largely about, AI and related things, but other themes too. Give me a first read on that. You said you had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, I've read the whole thing. And Magnificat Humanitas, I really liked the way that it set up the conversation. Mm-hmm. Particularly talking about the Tower of Babel and Nehemiah rebuilding of Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. I really like. So what are we doing? Are we building the Tower of Babel here? Or are we rebuilding Jerusalem with Nehemiah? Yeah. I really like the way that was laid out at the outset. It's a little bit of the same way I've been talking about AI. I'm worried about work, about the individual, dignity of the human. Dignity of the human being and purpose. And they talk about that in this encyclical about purpose and value of the individual. I was at, I think, Hill and Valley recently, all the tech guys and all that, and talking about this. And what I thought is, now myself, just by background, I used to be a welder. So I worked in labor. I started off as a welder.
You work with your hands.
I was a welder, come from a blue collar background. So I used to do this stuff for a living, and I've seen the good and I've seen the bad of it. And what I get, I think there's two ways to look at it. And the way I've been talking about it is AI in robotics has the ability to make those types of jobs, which are so important, make them safer, enable more longevity in those jobs, and also, of course, increase productivity, but not to the detriment of the worker. Or this thing's like the nuclear weapon of the advancement of manufacturing and labor in the world. And what I mean by the nuclear weapon, once that was invented, that's the pinnacle, right? That's the top. That's the apex. Once that was invented, there's not been another weapon invented on top of that is, well, here's another type. That level at all, right? This is the top. And is it going to have that effect on work in this country and around the world, but more particularly the worker themselves? And so a simple example would say you have individuals who are very much in favor of just fully automated trucking. All trucking, automated. It's like 3 million truckers.
Then what about the truckers? Yeah.
There's 3 million truckers in this country.
Yeah.
What I think AI and robotics could do, you talk about like a nuclear weapon for, just explosion in the workforce, 3 million guys out of work overnight. AI and robotics, what it could do is make those jobs safer, make the roads safer, where you have essentially like co-pilot assistant helping you, ensuring that you're staying on the road, you're awake, all these So there's a lot of things that could be an enabler to keeping people in these jobs for longer. And that's what people don't think about in terms of labor is you get hurt. I've been hurt on a job. I almost lost my finger on a job one time. Yeah. And got in a really heated conversation with my employer at that time about what they were going to cover or not cover. And so, yes, you do need some types of protections as these new types of technology. We got to have these types of conversations. And is that handled through government intervention? Is that handled through workers deciding to say, these are our rights, we're going to start to organize around this, labor unions, things like not sure where we're going to go in it all.
But that's the question, isn't it? As you lay out, I think very well what the problem is, but then who monitors that? Mm-hmm. How do you guarantee that we make this move but not that move?
Because if you get into, okay, the government's going to monitor all this. It's a lot of power in the government's hands saying that this is good. And government will take care of it. We're here from the government. We're here to help.
Ronald Reagan, the most frightening words in the English language. I'm here for I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
So that is concerning. So maybe, and I know there's kind of natural pushback on organized labor in this, but in that encyclical, that is mentioned. Organized labor is mentioned in that.
Which is an old Catholic concern of our social teaching going back to Rerum Novarum,
Yes.
The rights of workers to organize and to protect labor and all that.
And that's why I think this is such interesting timings. Obviously, he's not Pope Leo by accident.
Right.
We are in a new industrial revolution.
Yep.
And so that's what this is seeking to address and answer. But I think he laid it out very clearly. There's been some folks that are saying, "Oh, the Pope is against AI." The Pope is not against AI. That's not what he said at all.
No. I thought it was a very helpful summary. I've been attending conferences and people talking about AI now for a couple of years, and I thought the Pope's chapter there kind of brought a lot of the concerns under one umbrella. That was helpful. And, as a former educator, I taught for a long time. I worry about that. Young people, especially, they're taking in lots of information, and AI can organize information in a kind of shockingly rapid way. You could say, write a paper on, Descartes' relation to Kant's epistemology, and within seconds, you get a pretty credible. But that's just data assembly. That's not thinking. That's not understanding.
Yes.
And if we're using it, I think many young people are, as a kind of substitute for understanding, which involves working through Descartes yourself and working through Kant yourself and thinking and wondering and wait, that doesn't work. And that does. I worry about that a lot with AI, that it's covering a multitude of sins in a way.
And I think it's almost debasing our human nature.
Right. And that's the deeper thing.
That's what I worry about in this, is that it's, and he says it in the encyclical, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, a machine will never have a heart.
Yeah, right.
Essentially what he's saying. And he's right about that.
Right.
So
it's not conscious. It's not.
No. It's never going to have like true empathy, sympathy, feelings, things like that. And then you mentioned on it students, but I love that he touched on devices for children, iPads and iPhones and all these things. I love that he touched on that, because the church is not in its very definitive way saying this is a problem and this has long-term consequences if we don't do something about it. My children have no devices. We don't play that game at all.
To be a parent today is super challenging because of that.
Oh, it is. Because
they don't have devices yet.
No.
Of course, your kids are a little bit, when will you make that decision where they can, maybe in a limited way, use a phone or something?
Our goal here is high school.
High school, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Our goal here is high school, and then that would be limited, not an iPhone, but just if you need to call or text, you're at soccer practice, whatever.
Like an emergency or something.
They don't need all this. They don't need this, so look, when they're an adult, certainly they're going to make that decision. I'm hoping I've helped inform that decision. Leading up to that. But my 8-year-old daughter even has friends who have iPads and iPhones.
Right. And it's dangerous. Not just what they can access through it, but like screen time itself, all these studies have shown, is so psychologically problematic.
When the Holy Father touches on the addictive nature of this.
You know, we just did something here in Minnesota I was very happy about. The bishops got behind this as a law that's restricting kids' use of social media and giving parents much more control over it. It was a bit controversial, but we got behind it, and it just passed. I think the governor just signed it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes, and I was happy about that. I thought it was a good move, to put some restrictions on it. I found that helpful in the Pope's encyclical. I think we can spend a lot of time working through it. The other thing was the chapter on the Catholic social teaching. He kind of summarizes from Leo XIII to himself, and in a helpful way. Something I hope you can be part of. We're trying to organize this as a gathering of people in Congress or in government, just maybe to talk together about, some of the principles of Catholic social teaching, and then
I'd love to
see how that might impact the legislative work. No, I'd love that too if you'd be part of that.
No, I would love to do that. But yeah, I really, and you've had some members of Congress come out, not Catholics, even non-Catholics, saying, yeah, I think the Pope's talking about this in the right way.
At least a framework, for a good conversation. Because I tell you one thing. The American bishops, I've been in the conference now for 11 years. How many times we've said something like with immigration, it's a broken system, it's got to be fixed. It's not happening. And they've not, Democrats, Republicans, no one knows how to fix this system.
Yeah.
That's why I said to you and to Rokana and to Swazi, okay, if I give you these parameters, can you fix it within those parameters? And everyone has said, well, yeah, but, and there's this opposition here, and, it is a source of frustration that we can't find a way to definitively resolve this thing, right?
Yeah, I think one of the issues in immigration, and it's what many are not willing to do, right and left. So your kind of Chamber of Commerce crowd don't want to do it, and then obviously folks on the left don't want to do it, but it's E-Verify. So national E-Verify, because then we're putting the onus on the employer to say that who they are hiring is here legally.
Yeah.
We can seal the border and say, hey, look, you can't come in here. The border's closed. You can't come in. Okay. Well, I could also, at my own house, open up my window and say, it is illegal for you to come in my house, but I put a sticker on my TV that says free.
Yeah, right.
At some point, someone's coming in.
Right.
Yeah. That incentive structure is there. I think if we were willing to look at putting some of the onus on the employers who are incentivizing this.
But again, there's the problem in California. They want the permanent underclass if they can pay a slave wage, and so
I don't want that. I don't.
No, I know,
like
and that's
that
why
at
I'm saying
all.
it's so dehumanizing for everybody involved. That's not being friendly to immigrants.
No,
So I know. So again, part of the problem we need to fix. Hey, in the waning minutes, can I put you on the spot politically? So we're recording this in 2026. What's your best guess for the 2028 presidential? Democrats will put up whom, do you think, at this point?
Every time I say this, people are like, you're crazy.
Yeah, but
don't sleep on AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
You think they'll nominate her?
I'm not saying maybe. She's got more juice than people think. I know that's pretty frightening, but I think she has a very strong fundraising capability. She is nationally known.
Yeah.
And people could say, she's a goofball. She says different. Let me tell you what. Everybody laughed at her on that Green New Deal, and then it became the law of the land under the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
So in terms of the left, which are going to be energized to push against that, I see Gavin certainly trying to tack to the center here a little bit while attacking Trump. Would he kind of be a consensus candidate in that? Would the establishment try to push back? Perhaps we saw that, though, with Clinton Obama, obviously, and the way that went. But no, I would not sleep on her capability to perhaps get there. No bold prediction there. Not saying she's going to be the nominee, but I think she'll certainly
be a player.
Yeah, she will give them
Even
a run
that
for their
performance
money.
over in Europe when they asked her about Taiwan. Remember?
Oh yeah,
she was just kind of hopeless.
And guess what? It won't matter. It won't that won't matter in their primary. The end of the day. And she ultimately, if she decides to get involved in it, will push them to the left. She's going to drag them over there.
Well, of course, that's I've discussed this with people like Rokana and others. I'm from a Chicago Catholic background, which meant Democrat. My whole family was Democratic. My father's heroes were, FDR and Harry Truman and John F. Kennedy. But my father, I don't think would recognize the Democratic Party today as his party.
No, my grandmother wouldn't either.
It's been pulled so far left. And Bernie Sanders, give the guy credit, beginning in 2015, comes on the stage and then successfully yanks the party to the hard left.
Yes.
I find that fascinating. So how about Republicans now? JD on the top of the ticket?
I think JD top of the ticket. Now, I know there's folks talking about Marco. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has certainly said, if JD is running, I'm not going to run for my money. JD Vance all the way, 2028.
Both accomplished people, to be sure.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And certainly not taking anything away from Rubio. He has done a tremendous job as the Secretary of State. But no, you're talking about your father. If I was talking to my Irish Catholic grandmother, same thing. Kennedy, Democrat, Labor Union.
Right.
If she were to show up right now, she'd be like, what is...
Right. So you think it might be the battle of the initials, AOC against JD?
Yeah.
All right.
Could be. I don't think they're going to allow her to get through because they don't think
the way they didn't allow Bernie Sanders to get through.
Yes.
In 2020.
Yeah. But I think she's going to shift the window.
That's interesting.
Certainly with them.
Yeah.
If she decides, and she's not said one way or another whether she's going to get involved or not. But she's got some interesting takes every once in a while. I didn't know this about her, but she's against gambling. She's just against it.
Yeah.
Doesn't like casinos, doesn't like gambling.
Or how about the online gambling? Because that's something.
No, she really doesn't like it.
Yeah, well, because we've taken a position here in Minnesota about that because online gambling is so addictive and it's so destructive.
Yeah.
So, no, I'd support her on that.
Yeah, I know. See, she's got some little pieces here or there, that because I was talking to her about online gambling.
Okay, well, there's some common ground. Huh?
Yeah, but JD, take it to the bank.
All right.
Let's go.
All right. Listen, wonderful talking to you today, and hope we can, continue this relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Bishop.
God bless you.
God bless you.